There are moments when the mind feels like a dim room where the light has not quite reached. Moments when thoughts begin to press inward with a weight that is difficult to name. It does not matter whether the world outside is loud or quiet. Sometimes the heaviness does not come from what surrounds you, but from what rises within you. And in this very moment, when the heart grows tender and the mind grows tired, something inside whispers for help, almost too softly to notice. It is the quiet plea, "Lord, lift me back to you." You do not need a certain hour to feel this tug. It can come when your hands are busy, or when your body is still, or when the day has already worn you thin. The mind is rarely empty. It fills itself with echoes of conversations, shadows of what if, pieces of fears that never asked permission to enter. And yet, beneath all of the movement, there is a longing for a calmer place, a longing for the one who knows how the mind twists itself into knots even before you speak a word. When your thoughts feel heavy, you do not need to pretend strength. The Father does not ask you to hide the weight. He asks you to bring it, because He sees the inner world more clearly than you see the outer one. He sees the tightness in your chest, the pressure behind your long breaths, the way you try to hold yourself together when no one else notices the fight. And in His gentleness, He calls you, not with urgency, but with a steady invitation, to come as you are, with the thoughts that feel too loud and the feelings that feel too tender. There is a sacred honesty that rises when you finally stop running from what you feel. You might not speak it perfectly, but you can whisper it simply, "God, my thoughts are heavy today." And even that whisper becomes a doorway for the Spirit to step into the clutter and begin to untangle what tightened over time. Sometimes the heaviness comes from fear, sometimes from memories that linger longer than you wanted, sometimes from the quiet fatigue of trying to be strong for too long. And sometimes you cannot even explain why your mind refuses to settle. But you do not need the right explanation for God to meet you. He meets you in the mess before He meets you in the clarity. You might imagine your thoughts like a river that has overflowed its banks, rushing, restless, unpredictable. And yet, the Lord does not fear the flood. He steps into it, steady as a rock beneath the surface, inviting you to breathe again. He does not lift you by demanding that you think differently. He lifts you by staying near enough for you to rest your weight on Him. Just as the wind can quiet a trembling flame, His presence can soften the chaos in your mind. And in that quieting, He begins to guide you, not by force, but by familiarity. Back to truth, back to peace, back to the gentle certainty that you are held. It is not weakness to feel overwhelmed, it is human. And the God who shaped your mind knows how to steady it. He knows the rhythms of your thoughts, the patterns of your worry, the way your heart aches for a peace that lasts. He knows that heaviness is not something you choose. It is something that grows quietly until you notice its weight. And He is not ashamed of the heaviness you carry. He simply wants you to know you do not have to carry it alone. In the softest of ways, He calls your name. In the quietest of places, He reminds you of His nearness.
In the heaviness you feel right now, He offers something stronger than escape. He offers presence. And presence is what lifts a soul long before circumstances change. So let this moment be a returning. Let this breath be a surrender. Let your heart lean toward the God who lifts you gently, not away from your thoughts, but through them, until peace becomes the ground beneath your feet again. Lord, settle my thoughts and draw me back to you. Let your nearness soften the weight I carry, and let your peace steady my heart again. Amen. If this prayer touched something deep within you, whisper Amen in the comments. Share it to bless another heart. And don't forget to subscribe to stay rooted in His peace with us at 10 Minute with God, a quiet home for souls that seek Him every day. There comes a moment when God does not simply soothe the mind. He confronts it with a truth that refuses to be ignored. Because there are thoughts that do not just weigh you down. They shape the way you walk, the way you choose, the way you believe. And the Lord, who sees deeper than every surface piece you try to maintain, begins to speak into the very patterns that have quietly taken root. When your thoughts grow heavy, it is not only your heart that grows tired, it is your vision that grows dim. You begin to see yourself through the fog of worry instead of the clarity of His Word. You begin to measure your strength by your feelings instead of His presence. And this is where the Lord steps in, not gently this time, but with the firm tenderness of a father who refuses to let his child stay chained to lies that were never meant to rule them. There is a holy authority in the way He calls you back. He does not whisper around the edges. He speaks to the center. He speaks to the place where fear tries to plant itself. He speaks to the place where doubt builds its walls. He speaks to the place where the enemy tries to convince you that heaviness is permanent. And God breaks through with the kind of truth that does not ask permission to enter. Because the one who formed your mind knows its storms, and the one who breathed life into your soul knows how to command peace over it. When He says, "Lift your eyes," He is not giving advice. He is giving deliverance. When He says, "Come back to me," He is not asking for a visit. He is restoring what the weight tried to steal. He knows that thoughts left unguarded become doors for battles you were never meant to fight alone. So He confronts them with His Word, not to shame you, but to anchor you, to reteach you what is real when everything inside you feels unstable. There are lies you have carried so long they began to sound like your own voice, but the Lord exposes them one by one, not to embarrass you, but to free you. He shows you the quiet agreements you made with fear, the ones that whispered, "This is just who you are now." He shows you the habits your mind has rehearsed, the pathways your thoughts keep returning to, even when you want to be free. And then He speaks with an authority that reaches deeper than the heaviness itself. This is not the mind I created for you. His truth is not soft when it needs to be sharp. His peace is not fragile when it needs to be fierce. His presence is not distant when your thoughts try to drown you. He steps into the very places that intimidate you and declares that the ground belongs to Him. And when God takes ground, heaviness loses its power. That is why His Word calls you to transform, not by striving, but by surrendering. Not by pretending to be stronger, but by allowing Him to renew what has been worn thin. Renewal is not a suggestion, it is His promise. Transformation is not a theory, it is His work. He does not wait for you to fix your thinking before He meets you. He meets you so He can fix what has been shaping you from the inside. There is a shift that happens when you stop agreeing with what drains your spirit and start agreeing with what God says is true. Darkness loses its authority when truth enters the room. Fear loses its anchor when faith begins to rise. Heaviness loses its grip when the Lord claims your mind as His territory. And when God takes ground, heaviness loses its power. That is why His Word calls you to transform, not by striving, but by surrendering. Not by pretending to be stronger, but by allowing Him to renew what has been worn thin. Renewal is not a suggestion, it is His promise. Transformation is not a theory, it is His work. He does not wait for you to fix your thinking before He meets you. He meets you so He can fix what has been shaping you from the inside. There is a shift that happens when you stop agreeing with what drains your spirit and start agreeing with what God says is true. Darkness loses its authority when truth enters the room. Fear loses its anchor when faith begins to rise. Heaviness loses its grip when the Lord claims your mind as His territory.
And right now, as you look toward Him, He is calling you not simply to feel better, but to see differently. To see that His strength is not a distant concept, but a present power. To see that His peace is not a temporary relief, but a governing reality.
To see that His truth is not a comforting idea, but a sword that cuts through every lie that has tried to speak over you. You are not at the mercy of your thoughts. You are under the covering of the one who commands storms to still. You are not defined by the weight you feel. You are held by the God who lifts. And when He lifts you, He does not just raise your feelings. He raises your mindset, your clarity, your courage, your entire inner life, until you recognize again that you belong to Him, and no heaviness has the authority to claim what He has already redeemed. Lord, speak your truth into every place where heaviness has settled. Lift my mind into your clarity, and let your presence break every lie that rises against me. Amen. If this message stirred your spirit, whisper Amen in the comments. Share it to strengthen another heart, and subscribe so you can stay rooted in His Word with us at 10 Minute with God, a place where every moment becomes holy. There is a certain quiet that rises only when the soul grows tired of carrying its own weight, a quiet that feels less like silence and more like surrender. And maybe that is where I find myself now, somewhere between wanting to be strong and finally admitting I cannot lift my own thoughts back into the light. So I come to you, Lord, not with polished words or steady hands, but with a mind that has stumbled through too many inward battles to pretend it is fine. There is a confession hidden in this moment, a confession I have avoided. I cannot reach peace without you. I cannot steady what trembles inside me unless your presence meets me where my strength ends. And so I speak to you honestly, not as someone who has figured things out, but as someone who desperately needs your nearness to make sense of what's happening in my own heart. I have tried to reason with the heaviness, tried to ignore it, tried to outrun it, but I am beginning to see that what I truly needed was not escape, it was encounter. Not distraction, but direction. Not a moment where I feel stronger, but a moment where I feel you. Because when my thoughts grow heavy, they do not just cloud my mind, they pull my heart away from the truth I used to stand on. They make me forget the steadiness you've placed in me, forget the gentleness you've always shown me, forget the way your love has carried me through seasons I thought I would never survive. And so I return here, to this quiet honesty, where I can say what I haven't been able to admit. God, I need you to lift me. Not eventually, not someday, but here, right where I stand, with all my tangled thoughts and unfinished prayers. I need the kind of lifting only you can do. Not the lifting that erases the weight, but the lifting that reminds me I am not holding it alone. I think you've always known how quickly my mind can drift into places where fear tries to write the story. And yet, you never grow tired of calling me back, gently but persistently, as if you are determined to show me that my thoughts do not have the final authority. Your truth does. You remind me that there is a difference between what feels true in the moment and what is true forever. And the weight I feel is not a prophecy. It is simply a place where your voice has not finished its work. So I open my heart to you again, slowly, the way a door opens after being stuck for a while. And I ask you to step inside the places I don't show anyone else. The places where insecurities grow roots. The places where old fears whisper familiar lies. The places where fatigue stretches into discouragement. The places where I hold myself together in public but fall apart in private. You are not intimidated by any of it. You never have been. Instead, you gather the pieces without judgment, without hurry, and you begin to breathe over them, as if reminding me that nothing is too heavy for the hands that shape the stars. And maybe the lifting happens right here, not after everything makes sense, but while everything is still in process. Not when the mind becomes perfect, but when the heart becomes honest. Not when the journey ends, but when I stop pretending I can walk it alone. The truth is, Lord, I belong to you. And if I belong to you, then my thoughts belong under your covering. My fears belong in your light. My burdens belong in your hands. You are the one who steadies my breath when the world pulls too hard at it. You are the one who reminds me that peace is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of you. So lift me, God. Lift me not only above what weighs me down, but into who you've always seen me becoming. Lift me into clarity where confusion once ruled. Lift me into hope where disappointment had settled in. Lift me into courage where anxiety tried to build its walls. Lift me into the identity you formed for me long before my thoughts learned the language of worry. And as you lift me, teach me to remain there, to stay close, to stay open, to stay surrendered. Because every time I drift, I lose sight of how gentle your touch really is. And every time I return, I realize I was never meant to face anything without you. So here is my whole inner world. The storms, the quiet places, the questions, the longing. I place it all before you, trusting that you know how to shape it into peace far better than I know how to manage it. And as you lift me, Lord, let this surrender become a homecoming, a reminder that no matter how heavy my thoughts become, I am never beyond the reach of your hands. Jesus, hold my thoughts close to your heart and lift me into the peace only you can give. Let your presence steady my mind and let your truth rest over every place that feels unsteady. Amen. If your heart felt his nearness in this moment, whisper Amen below. Share this prayer to bless another soul and subscribe to stay rooted in his presence with 10 Men with God, where every moment becomes holy.